This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Dornall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Monday, October 28th, 2024. And today we're going to be talking to the editor of CIRSOVA magazine about his new Kickstarter, The Dream Lords. And but before we do, we're going to be Dornall has got a short movie review of a scintillating, majestic wonder of a movie that just came out, and we might also have some news. And I also have a 5e question for anybody who knows the rules for D&D 5th edition, because I read this statement and I just can't believe it, and I would really, really like to have it confirmed or disconfirmed. But first, how was the movie?
A timeless classic, much like the entire back catalog of the Geek Gab show. For date night, we went and saw the new Tom Hardy masterpiece, Venom: The Last Dance. It is a anti-hero movie about and everybody knows who Venom is, right? He's just a really violent villain or anti-hero, depending on what movie you're watching or what book you're reading. Yet somehow they managed to get this out at PG-13. That's probably all you needed to know about it. But it's the third movie in what can be generously termed as the Venom franchise, and it's called The Last Dance because it ends the Tom Hardy Venom quote unquote franchise, and it's just a dumb, forgettable popcorn CGI superhero movie. I didn't mind it. I enjoyed myself while it was going on. Ultimately, it felt like a sort of expensive TV show, if you ask me. If you count that as a complaint, it's not much of one. It wasn't really that big of a deal. But all I can say is that I enjoyed myself and promptly forgot it. Is there anything you'd like to know about it?
Oh.
No.
I didn't watch the second one. It crossed my mind to maybe watch the second one this weekend and then maybe go see Venom this afternoon, but I didn't have the heart. I didn't have it in me.
You just can't make yourself care about it.
Yeah. I mean, first off, even when the Marvel Universe was doing really, really well and I was excited about it and I wanted to go see the movies because they tied into the Marvel Universe thing, even before Marvel blew that whole thing up, Sony was doing really weird stuff with their Spider-Man universe thing. Spider-Man was technically sort of part of the Marvel Universe, right? But these other movies that they've been making are kind of supposedly, technically with that Spider-Man, but they're not part of the Marvel Universe, so you don't care about them, like Kraven the Hunter, which is coming out, or Madam Web, or Morbius. They're supposedly in the same world with Spider-Man, who's supposedly in the same world as the Marvel Universe, but they're not actually in the Marvel Universe. So you don't care. But that's not even the situation Venom's in. Venom's off in his own hermetically sealed universe that doesn't have anything to do with anybody. So even when I cared about the Marvel Universe, I didn't care very much about Venom. And the first Venom movie was okay. I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't super great or anything.
Yeah, there was nothing to it. It was Tom Hardy gets to choose scenery, and they have a lot of fun with computer generated images, and you get to see animated Venom running around, and you say, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen an animated Venom running around since I last played Marvel vs. Capcom 2." And that was it.
I mean, maybe it's good for Tom Hardy. He's so used to doing like prestige pictures, or pictures where he gets like meaty roles. Maybe he just wanted to play. The character himself is stupid, right? Um, and he's in a stupid movie where it doesn't really matter what he does. It's not really going to affect the success or failure of the movie. So he just gets to do whatever he feels like and just have fun with the role and does whatever he wants. Maybe that's just like a vacation for an actor to get paid to do whatever the hell comes into your mind.
It sure seemed like a vacation for everybody, including the writers who couldn't even fill 90 minutes screen time without a animated dance number with a side character from the movie I did, Venom 2, the one I didn't see.
I was going to guess, I was going to ask, did they do a dance number? Because I was joking, but they really did a dance number.
They really did a dance number.
Oh, oh man. Okay,
So
well,
yeah, it's trash, but mildly entertaining trash, not irredeemable garbage like too many examples. But
well, I mean that's actually, I mean that's actually kind of a recommendation nowadays, with Agatha all along and all these other really bad Marvel movies. Oh yeah, there is some news we want to talk about. Speaking of bad Marvel movies, they finally put Blade on indefinite hold, which is what they call it when they cancel a movie, but don't want to admit they canceled a movie because they spent so much money on it over the last 5 years. So
good news. I love it.
I said this on Twitter, so I'm going to say it again. How do you screw up a movie that's about a big, muscly black guy killing vampires? How do you screw that up? And the answer, because I found out the answer, is you screw it up by turning it into a movie where his mom, his sister, his daughter, and I think his aunt all lecture him about toxic masculinity. That's how you screw it up.
Wow, that's even worse than what I was going to say, which was to say add Ryan Reynolds to the cast.
The movie made him the fourth lead. So he was fourth place. Blade was fourth place in the Blade movie. And it made it all about learning life lessons, which you know what that means.
Oh,
Lectures
boy.
on toxic masculinity. People ask me, are you joking? Are you making that up for a joke? I'm like, no, I'm dead serious. All of his family were going to be lecturing him about toxic masculinity. That was the Blade movie. That's how you screw Blade up. They went through, I think, 6 script revisions. They went through 3 directors. They went through 5 writers. It's just a bunch of money thrown down a pit for what should be a simple slam dunk movie. You could not mess up that movie if you tried, except bringing in
And they did.
untalented writers.
They did. They tried 3 times.
Oh,
The first time they hired Steven Dorff, and the third time they hired Ryan Reynolds, and they still couldn't screw it up. The Blade movies are awesome.
and they had such terrible special effects in that first one, and it was still great. I just it boggles my mind how you can mess it up. But anyways, it got canceled. It's it's on indefinite hold now. Um, and we are all better for it. Maybe in the future, Marvel Studios will, you know, get their balls back. And oh wait, did I say that out loud? Marvel Studios will rediscover the virtue of appealing to its male audience. And wait, that's another
I,
impolite way of
I
saying. How do I
believe
say that?
I believe the phrase you're looking for is learned a life lesson.
Learn a life lesson. Yes, maybe Marvel Studios themselves will learn a life lesson and create pictures not for the modern audience but for the general audience, and start making good movies again. Maybe it might happen. So, I mean, the rest of Hollywood is learning this. Hollywood is contracting, right? It's shrunk by like 2/3, and apparently studios are quietly firing um, new hires who were not necessarily hired for their vast experience or raw talent in writing, but who were hired for a certain perceived value as per their demographic traits. And those are the ones who are being fired first, if you understand what I'm saying.
I'm shocked and appalled.
Hollywood is trying to reorient itself away from the modern audience and towards the general audience. So, some people, now that we're in a severe economic downturn, not that we're in a severe economic downturn, not that I would say that, has suddenly rediscovered the virtue of making money. So, okay, this is my 5E question. I think we've covered that subject. Someone said on Twitter tonight that the rules are in 5th edition that when a druid who has one of these battle wheelchairs wild shapes, the battle wheelchair wild shapes with him.
Certainly.
Transforms with him. Now, the way they put this was that their animal form does not gain mobility, as in it is still paralyzed, and it also uses the wheelchair. In the new edition, the 2024 edition, 6th edition.
I see what you're saying. So they're changing it so that the wheelchair stays and the animal needs to use it.
Yes.
Does the wheelchair adapt to the animal?
That it changes size to fit the animal. That's what the person said.
Yeah, and oh boy, yeah, exactly. Let's ask someone who's actually disabled how they feel about playing D&D. I am in a wheelchair. No way in hell would I want to stay in one if I had any magic that would heal or otherwise fix it. Yeah, that's a pretty common sentiment. And on top of that, you make a really good point. Like, you're in a wheelchair. You aren't a wheelchair. Changing that rule breaks one of the sort of fundamental logic of the spell, the fundamental logic of the abilities, that it changes you, the creature, and it transforms the gear that you're wearing with it, right? So on both counts, A, the wheelchair is not part of you, and B, it is something that you are wearing at the time. That the rule change makes no sense on any on any grounds other than we at Wizards of the Coast eat paint for lunch every day.
See, I don't know if this is true. That's why I was wondering if somebody who was in the know could answer the question, if they know whether that's true or not. Because that just sounds so catastrophically stupid, so monumentally, gargantuanly dumb. And that's not even, honestly, I consider a wheelchair to be like a cart or like, a wagon. That's not going to, it's a vehicle you're inside. That doesn't transform with you when you wild shape. So that's just how I would have ruled on it. They put that explicitly in the rules, fine. I think that's stupid.
I mean, it's really a matter of convenience. I mean, the 5e rule is correct. Like, if you have something silly like a combat wheelchair or something like that, then it should wild shape with you. But still, that's
if you're
not the.
doing something silly like playing a paralyzed person in D&D where you could easily get that condition fixed,
Yeah.
then I'm not obligated to bend my model of reality to make life more convenient from you. A combat wheelchair should be inconvenient.
No, I can't answer that. I can't answer the actual question for you. Neither can chat.
I just saw Mark Kern saying something about it, and it sounds that is correct. That if your druid wild shaped into a bird and is wearing and is in a wheelchair, the bird will have like little wheels instead of legs.
Are you sure that's not V? That's just quoting Mark?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me anymore.
I
was just I was scrolling and saw that exact thing that you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
That's
so anyways, this is just a question I have. I find this whole thing just so colossally stupid that I don't even want to deal with it anymore. I mean, I don't even want to deal with these people in the hobby anymore. I am writing off that section of the hobby as being, and I'm not saying I'm writing off the people. I'm not saying I'm throwing away the people, but I am saying all this material is too poisoned to be of use. That is not a game that you can successfully play. Like the new Dragon Age Veil card, and there have been some screenshots going around of that. 3 of them I know that are just so monumentally stupid. There's a point at which the idiocy becomes so prevalent in the books, or the copy or the cover art of the new Heir of Strahd book. And it's just enough. I've had enough. I am not going to acknowledge the existence of that game as a serious endeavor. It's not a serious endeavor. It is people finger painting with their own poop because they are mentally infants. They have infantilized themselves. That doesn't mean they can't grow up. That doesn't mean they can't be taught. That doesn't mean they can't notice good things other people are doing and become intrigued by them and want to better themselves. I'm not writing them off as people, but I am saying that work, D&D 2024, 5.5, 6e, whatever you want to call it, is a bunch of people finger painting with their own poo. And I'm done. I am not going to consider it, even if I comment on it from here out. It is from a position of acknowledging its utter invalidity. I don't know if I used the right word there, but it is utterly invalid as a serious role playing game. It is not trying to be a role playing game. It had no serious designs on making itself a good role playing game. It's just there to be a piece of propaganda. And I'm not having it. So, last piece of news, I have finally broken completely and utterly Apple's Notes app. So,
What does that mean?
Well, the number of notes that it will no longer function, that means that it won't effectively sync between devices, is 31,604. So, but a lot of those include pictures, and several of them include movies. So it may be that if you're only going for text, you might be able to get more out of it. But this is at the point at which notes on my phone won't sync out, and it brings down processing of all the other programs on my devices, and typing in it is gargantuanly slow, even on my brand new obscenely fast computer. So I have discovered a way to export all my notes and clean out the notes program, and I'll be using something else going forward. But after 7 years of using the notes program as my primary design and world building and brainstorming program, it is dead in the water. So
that's a lot of notes.
Yeah.
How often do you go over 7 years of notes, though?
Constantly. Like today, I was writing up the definition of people, which, if you remember when we talked about orcs, whether they were in, I want to get done real quick because we only have 3 minutes to the half-hour mark, and after that, we need to turn it over to the Dream Lords. If you remember when we did our show about orcs being innately or being always chaotic evil, I proffered a definition of people, which was based on the folk arcane knowledge from Torg, which is basically people are innately social. They form families, tribes, societies, civilization, and they have those innate moral codes to support them. And they all have recognizable emotions like love, anger, sadness, joy, and fear. But I needed to write this down. I needed to synthesize this. So in order to do that, I needed to do a search for all the notes I had taken about it up to that point. So I typed in, the search terms I needed, and I was pulling material that went all the way back to the beginning of the notes program. Like the earliest note I pulled, depending on material that was in documents that predated my use of the notes program. I began using notes because that stuff was in a different program that wouldn't sync properly just on its own. It had a really bad syncing system. Because I wanted to, see this stuff I had said on the air, see this stuff in just in offhand notes I had jotted down. or that I had written up, whatever, and then I synthesized all these things into a clear definition. I'm making, sort of like third edition D&D had a list of creatures, creature types, constructs, vermin, outsiders, I think animals, so on and so forth, aberrations. I am slowly putting together partially a list of that, but partially also a list of metaphysical divisions between creatures. Like it's based not just on game mechanical considerations like you would for cards in Magic the Gathering, but like metaphysical considerations like what's a spirit? A lot of things are described in Wikipedia, in the Bible, in other places as spirits. You'll read up notes that says, okay, here's a dryad. Well, a dryad is a tree spirit that blah, 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 blah. So that's nice and everything. But what is a spirit actually? Could you guess? What would you say?
Oh, I would guess that it was a non-corporeal entity, a non-physical entity.
Good start. This is what I put down as my definition for spirits. And they're one kind of, the short definition is a disembodied being, which is basically what you said. Here's the long definition. Spirits. Spirits are embodied intelligences with a body made of a finer form of matter than normal people have. Our cruder matter cannot directly interact with it, neither to detect nor to manipulate it. It can appear, disappear, teleport, pass through walls, and so forth. Some spirits can be in several places at once. So, metaphysical explanation for what a spirit is. And I need to do that for all of these things so that it's not just game mechanical definitions, but it sort of delineates their place within the larger world so that when I'm creating things or when I'm adapting things, I know exactly what I'm doing. I have a solid basis to go from. And I've had to do it myself because other places just have had these circular definitions and none of them really got to the heart of it. And honestly, I haven't yet got to the heart of people, haven't yet got to the heart of folk. I've got sort of a definition, but I can still feel in my mind when I think about it. It's just edging around the issue. I haven't quite identified it, I haven't quite encapsulated the true core of it, but I'm getting there. I'm getting closer and closer. I'm getting better and better. And I'm understanding what it means to be what it basically means to be normal people. And that covers human beings, elves, dwarves, Klingons, Vulcans, Narn, Centauri, basically people who get married, have kids, raise families, form societies. They have language. They have an innate moral code that you don't harm people in your tribe, that they love their people, their ancestry, things like that. That's all part of it, but that's not the absolute core of it. So I'm still working on that. So, and it may seem distant and academic, but every time I've been working on something distant and academic, literally like a week later after I come up with a solution, I absolutely need that solution to eliminate some other big problem I've had in a different area for the last 7 years. And I couldn't have fixed it without solving this distant academic problem. So I've learned to just trust my intellectual.
It's just the way you think.
Sessions. Yeah, it's just the way I think. I just have to go with it because that's the way I work. And I've got a lot of evidence for that. So anyways, it is now 8:33, and it's time to introduce our guest. Do you want to take it away?
It is about time. Yeah, welcome back, CIRSOVA magazine editor. And you've been on a few times, but I always forget. Do we call you CIRSOVA or Alex or whatever?
You can call me Alex.
Fantastic. Questions? Before the show, we talked about some of the stuff that you've been working on and everything, except for the important questions like, do we use your name on the air? But it's great to have you back to talk about all sorts of stuff, including whatever it is that you want to talk about. So welcome back. For those of you who don't know, he's the editor of CIRSOVA magazine, a fun speculative fiction, shall we call it, magazine of adventure stories. You've been doing it for quite a few years now. And you publish all sorts of other stuff as well, including the title of the show. You've got a Kickstarter out it's the Dreamlord's 50th anniversary omnibus collection. So you've got 50 years of stories packed into one volume.
Well, not quite 50 years worth of stories, but it is the original trilogy from the 70s that we are collecting in a single omnibus edition. We will, in about a year or so, be publishing a companion volume that will include the stories that we have been publishing in the Dreamlord setting since Adrian Cole revived it for us in 2016.
Let me put that on the for anybody watching on YouTube. I'll put the Kickstarter up, and we'll put the banner up there. So, all right. So you guys revived it, or he revived it back in 2016. And remind me, did you guys publish that as well? Did you publish that?
Yeah, actually, what happened was around the time that I was doing my own Appendix N exploration, when Jeffro was putting out his articles and I was reading all those pulps and publishing short reviews for Castalia House of stuff from Planet Stories. I was also going and picking up pulp paperbacks and stuff from the 70s and reprints of pulp books. And I found these weird looking books at this one flea market booth that had a bunch of science fiction and fantasy stuff. And there's this horrible cover of some guy fighting a weird multi-horned dragon thing that says science fiction and fantasy in the vein of Tolkien and H.P. Lovecraft. And I'm like, what could this possibly be? And like, I start reading it and I can't make heads or tails of it, because it turns out that it is the second book in the series, even though there's no indication on the trade dress that it's the second book in the series.
Oh.
And I managed to go back and find the other two books because they had them there at the flea market booth too. And I ended up reading them, and I'm like, wow, this, despite the weird sale on the Tolkien and Lovecraftian thing, I mean, we're talking like bare-chested barbarian guy type adventure here, which is not especially Tolkienian. But it was really cool, and I'm like, wow, this is really great stuff. And Morgan Holmes, who is one of the writers over at Castalia, tells me, he's like, I actually know Adrian Cole. If you want to talk to him, I can put you in touch with him. And so he put me in touch with Adrian Cole, so I actually had a chance to ask him about the covers of the 1970s editions of Dreamlords. And he's like, yeah, they were the first books I published. I had no say whatsoever over the covers or the marketing pitch text. They screwed up one edition of the second book, didn't put the numbering on it, and then the second edition of the second book, they put it as volume 3, so there's no edition that ever said volume 2. And yeah, it was a mess,
Absolute
and we had a
disaster.
laugh about that. Yeah, but that was his debut trilogy, and he's gone on to be one of the foremost journeyman writers of science fiction and fantasy from that era. I mean, you may not have heard of him as one of the big names, but he's been steadily working, selling short stories, publishing novels since the mid 70s. And when we started CIRSOVA magazine, I asked him, would you be interested in writing more stories set in the Dreamlords setting? He said, absolutely. And so in our very second issue, the cover story for that is The Sealed City, which introduced Witchfinder Aurel Vorum, who's the main character of that sequel series. And we haven't had a story of the new Dreamlords in every year, but we've had a lot of them to where Adrian has enough stuff for a fix-up novel that we are currently sitting on and prepared to publish in about a year or so, called Dreamlord's Legacy, that will collect pretty much everything that we have published in CIRSOVA magazine, as well as a couple stories that were published elsewhere, as well as a conclusion that has never been before published.
Oh, I love it.
So that's going to be the big project after this one. But the big thing we wanted to do with this was put out a really good foundational edition that collects the original series. It has updated and corrected text. It has a new foreword by Adrian Cole, and it has art that he's incredibly happy with. The design is based on a little doodle sketch that he gave me that I handed off to Anton Oxenuk, who's been one of our major artists for the last several years. And as you can see, it's this gorgeous wraparound cover. Like if you scroll down a little bit, you can see a version that's got more details there. You can see the spaceships that are coming in, bringing troops into Earth to suppress the rebellion.
Oh, really fantastic art.
Yeah, yeah.
It's moody and evocative, if I'm permitted to use those words and still show my face in public. And this is interesting because this is a lot closer to that description of Lovecraftian than what you said, or these original covers, which you posted before. These original covers are showing.
One way you could kind of describe the original Dreamlords series is sort of John Carter of Dune.
That's a great description.
Yeah, so the premise is, in the distant future, mankind has a solar empire that is ruled from Jupiter, which is now called Zerja. And basically, atomic wars have completely destroyed the Earth. It's a backwater wasteland. There are horrible mutants. And so mankind has mostly left for the other worlds, except, we weren't really made to live on these other worlds and the various moons of the outer solar system. So the Dreamlords are a cabal of powerful, long-lived psionicists who are able to project visions of paradise into the minds of all the inhabitants of the empire, sort of like Jack Vance's Eyes of the Overworld. So, even though they're living in just like these hellish, awful nightmare worlds, everything seems pretty honky-dory because they have this vision of paradise being projected to them. Except, the triumvirate of Dreamlords' power is starting to kind of falter. They're getting up there in years. One of them has a successor who is the main character, Galad Sarian, who's going to be taking over his father's spot. But what kind of throws a wrench in that works is he gets exposed to the heresy that mankind actually originated on Earth. And this is a big no-no because, Earth is primitive, awful, war-torn, destroyed. Anybody from Earth is terrible. Mankind came from the stars and inhabited the solar systems that way.
Oh.
But that gives them an excuse to keep the people who are on Earth oppressed and enslaved, and they've turned over control of Earth to this guy Darius Vorta, who's turned it into a planetary prison colony. But he's also taken up worship of some of the bizarre atomic mutants that are living on Earth now. And they have all sorts of horrible psychic powers, and he's got psychic powers from them as well. And he's got his own plot to overthrow the Dream Lords and take over the Empire and seize control for himself. And so you have a story that is one part cloak and dagger and another part barbarian warrior. Because there's all the intrigue and stuff with that's going on with the nobles and the Dream Lords, Darius Vorta and his faction and his allies. But you also have Galadsarian, who manages to escape from that into the wilderness and join up with the barbarians of Earth to lead the rebellion against Darius Vorta. And so, you have the sort of three-way conflict between the traitor to the Dream Lords who's trying to take over the Empire, the traitor to the Dream Lords who wants to throw off the yoke of the Empire, and of course the Dream Lords themselves who are trying to maintain what little grasp they have left on power of their empire.
Oh, that's certainly an outstanding setup, and how else do I put this, man? It does sound very 70s. But that's a great backdrop for, like, you've got people to root for, as soon as you paint that picture of, all the millions or billions of people who are, enslaved by this dream, toiling away on hellscapes.
Yeah, so
almost like the Matrix.
Yeah, so the first volume, A Plague of Nightmares, is a lot of that cloak and dagger stuff where the guy is discovering the truth about what's going on with Earth and the Dream Lord's empire, and the cloak and dagger stuff is he gets exiled to Mars to cool his heels because they're like, you can't be spreading this heresy about Earth, but we also desperately need you to take over your father's position and the Dream Lord's triumvirate. And so while he's there on Mars, that's where he discovers the conspiracy that Darius Vorta has to try to overthrow the Dream Lords and seize power for himself. And in the second book, Lord of Nightmares, you get the barbarian sword and sorcery stuff because he gets taken in chains to Earth and has to escape that, and he joins up with the barbarians and leads the war of rebellion. And then the Bane of Nightmares is sort of dealing with the aftermath of you have the big bloody war, but you also have to reconcile this with the fact that there's a spacefaring empire that has troops that they can send in. Even though the empire is crumbling, there's still a lot of power to be had and wielded on both sides.
Now the Kickstarter mentions that besides I'm trying to get at what you've added to it. Now you mentioned, revising, doing corrections and revising the art and everything, which is great. And there's something to be said for, you don't get a lot of second chances in life. And I bet Adrian Cole is absolutely thrilled to get a second chance at bringing back those old books without the obnoxious New York publishers deciding everything, with him getting so much more control and over, what gets printed and how. So aside from that, like what else are you guys bringing to the table here for the 50th anniversary?
That's really kind of the big thing. We are offering some trading cards as stretch goals. So we have the Galadsarian trading card that we're going to throw in. That stretch goal has already been unlocked, and at 8,000 we have one for Arelvorum from Dreamlord's Legacy. But just getting this back into print is really kind of the big part of it. And it's kind of funny how this sort of fell into our laps, because originally I think this was supposed to be done through Pulp Hero Press, but things fell apart after the first volume, and I was like, well, if you can't find any other publishers for it, let me know and we'll figure something out. And the timing just sort of worked out that we managed to get it together for the 50th anniversary. So one of the reasons why we decided to go with the omnibus like this is because the old Zebra paperbacks, they're still extant. You can still find them, no problem. I mean, they're cheap, they're not amazing, they have those hideous covers there, but you can still get your hands on them. The Pulp Hero Press only managed to get the first volume out, and I'm like, well, there's no sense in just putting out the first volume again a third time, so that there are 3 different editions of Plague of Nightmares. So we just want to get like a really, really nice collected edition. So we've got one that's in the hardcover with the wraparound dust jacket. And we've got a paperback edition that's going to have just, it's still going to have the wraparound art, but you're going to get a barcode on it. It's not going to be quite as immaculate as if you got the hardcover.
Yeah, is that the finished hardcover right there? No writing on the back?
Not quite. I mean, the hardcover has text on the flaps. Like, we don't have the image of like the flaps.
Gotcha.
The flap text and Adrian's short bio, but that's just to sort of give you an idea of what the wraparound art looks like.
Oh, it's beautiful. I don't know that I need to know more about this other than where to get it, and we got the link up for me or anybody else to check that out on Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I mean, we'd really like to be able to run up the numbers on this, because we would love to be able to write Adrian a really nice check for this, because I mean, I don't want to say that this is, like the capstone to his career or his crowning achievement or anything. So, I mean, he's still got more books coming out. He's still working. But, keep in mind that this is the 50th anniversary edition of a book by a living author.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we want to do proud by him.
That would be a nice feather in both your caps. That'd be great. Oh, I did have something I wanted to mention, and I think you should totally. Everybody's listening should think about it. If you love this sort of fiction, think about it, because your trading card thing has sort of. I haven't mentioned it on the show before, but I've bought a few of your special publications like this, and they all come with cool trading cards from characters. They feature characters from some of your stories or some of your books and everything like that. And
yeah, that's something that we've started doing fairly recently, and part of it was because Iconic Comics had been doing it, and people love the little Common America trading cards and whatnot, and they're a really cheap thing to add in. Like as far as add-ons and extras go, they don't cost a whole heck of a lot, and the scale for them is fairly cheap. So, once you get up to, 250, 500, like it becomes a matter of like $5 to $10 to add several hundred more on. Which of course means, like if we have way too many of them, we're still getting rid of them, which is why we're still giving away sets of the CIRSOVA Classics one. But
yeah, yeah, I did get a couple of repeats a couple of times. I think it's a really cool feature. If even for a cheap add-on, it's like a nice thing to get. You get the book that you wanted, but then you get this also thing that, how do I put it? Like, it makes you feel like you're dealing with real people who have a love for the fiction and for the hobby of writing, of science fiction and writing and publishing and everything like that. And it feels like you're buying into that as well.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why we're doing them this year too is because we're really trying to grow the audience for Wild Stars, just because we haven't had a whole lot of luck just and growing that audience, which is kind of a shame because it's a series that's been around almost as long as Dream Lords, but it's one of those ones that's a little bit more convoluted and harder to get into because it's such a big series. And we're up to the 9th installment that we're going to be serializing next year. So, we were kind
of... Go ahead, finish that thought.
Oh yeah, so I was just going to say that we were kind of hoping that this would spark some additional interest and curiosity by having some of those characters highlighted in the trading cards this year that we were giving out, because we weren't just giving them out with the Wild Stars Kickstarter. We were giving them out for anyone who sent in self-addressed stamped envelopes, anybody who won any of our raffles, anybody who bought stuff from us off eBay. We were giving them out to everybody.
That's cool. Any plans for a future CIRSOVA trading card game?
No, we haven't really done anything to bake in any sort of mechanics for the trading cards or stats. We just include the name, the bio, the first appearance, that sort of information.
We'll work that out. Hit me up. We'll work that out when we get the CIRSOVA cinematic universe put together. And it's a full-on. When you're a publishing brand for the ages, that's only partially tongue-in-cheek because that sounds awesome. Let's see. Oh, and another thing along those lines, also, I remember also getting business cards in some of the.
Oh yeah, that was a special gimmick that we did for, I think, an Atlas of Bad Roads. Those were all businesses that appeared in some of Misha's short stories. Like any of the ones that were included as business cards were referenced or name dropped. Like there was the pizzeria that the guy had the frozen pizzas in that gave him the weird cannibalism disease, for instance.
Kuru? He got Kuru from a frozen pizza?
Yeah, welcome to the twisted mind of Misha Burnett.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that was the cool thing, because every one of those, even if you hadn't read all the stories yet, every single one of those business cards were like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a place I want to go to. Anyway, I think those sorts of things add an extra charm to the stuff that you do. I love it. And this is my segue into D&D again, because I didn't get any cards or anything with the Browser book, which you also published. And we talked about this last week when you weren't here. We should have had you on 2 weeks in a row, Alex. But you just published a gaming book module, a fantasy Bronstein. How do you categorize it?
It's difficult to categorize because it's something really new for us.
I'll tell you what it is. It's a cap system. A cap system is a term that was invented for the Primal Order back in the 90s, because what the Primal Order was a gaming supplement that could be used with any role-playing system. It had rules in it, but it could be used with any other role-playing system. So that's a cap system. It's a system, that fits on like a cap onto anything you use it with. So this book is a cap system for using Bronsteins with any other role-playing game.
Yeah, the idea and purpose of it was to elucidate the idea of how you could incorporate and run a Bronstein as part of your tabletop RPG experience. And the factions are included as almost just like examples of play. So you can run the factions that are included in Browser, but the important part are Jeffros and B-dubs and my essays on what the Bronstein is, how to run it, how to do mass combat and scaling. So it's kind of funny because ideally it was written for something like AD&D, Axe, or BX in mind, but the people who are running it right now are using Amber Diceless.
Funny and somehow inevitable, but those essays are fantastic. Well worth the price of admission, which is $5. You're selling that at cost, right?
Yeah, if you get the print, it's $4.70 something plus shipping and handling. But you can download it for free on DriveThruRPG, and that's the main way that we want people to consume it. It is our gift to all gamers.
That's amazing. That's amazing, and for good reason too. I mean, we don't need to go into the details on how the Brosar feels about modules and money and the word Bronstein and making money off of the whole ordeal. I mean, if you know, you know.
Yeah, it's been really funny because the most pushback we've got on it has not been from any ideas or concepts in the product itself, but the notion that we are giving it away for free because improving your game with Bronstein is more important than the tens of dollars we would be making as PDF merchants, spreading that profit across the dozen people who contributed to it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And because the sales numbers tonight.
Yeah, I haven't checked print sales. Last time I checked print sales, there were something like 65, 70 copies sold, but there have been over 600 downloads. We're up to about 640 downloads as of tonight.
And you did something really interesting, and I was asking you about this before, but you did something really interesting, and I noticed flipping, because I got a print copy. I love having the thing in my hands, and you start every faction on the right page, and every faction is 2 pages long, but it's laid out so that you have to turn the page to look at the other side of the faction. And so holding this in my hand, it's really awkward. But you had a reason for that, didn't you? Like, that was a deliberate decision?
Yeah, so the thing is since Browser is a PDF, it's print and play. So if you're printing off a copy of Browser, all of the factions, if you're printing front and back, are on one sheet of paper. So you can give that one sheet of paper front and back to a player, and that's their faction.
Perfect. I am totally consuming this the wrong way.
Yeah, or if you have the print book, you can just tear out the page and give it to the player because it's only like a $5 book.
Exactly. Um, uh, uh, Brilliant. I'm glad I asked because it's a really good move. I would love to do this. I think my first Bronstein is going to be in the Cyberpunk 2020 game. So I think the essays are going to be a lot more helpful than the factions. But you know what? I think the cavemen faction. I'm sorry. What are the cavemen faction in this one?
Conclave of 6.
Conclave of 6. I think that'll make a great model for a group of competing gangs fighting over gang territory. I think that would be great.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to do was, since this was supposed to be an introductory product, to introduce people to the concept, we included something that could be run as a tutorial. So the Conclave of 6 is basically a micro Bronstein within the Bronstein of the other factions. So people could be, if you only have 6 players and one person who could act as the game master, you don't have to have a dozen people running all these factions. You just be like, okay, you get this cave, you get this cave, you get this cave, have at it.
Oh, that's cool. And it does include you made them different enough that people have something. So I've got this issue where I need a little more guide rails. I need a spark first, something to guide me. And in the context of a Bronstein, I need a hook. Right. What does my faction want to do, or what is it good at? What is it bad at, to help me sort of think through what I want to do and how to approach the game. That's what all the factions do really, really well. And the Conclave in particular, you quite simply, you gave each of them, they have like a clan symbol, and they have different units of helpers and troops that they command.
And the themes between them give enough friction that you can come up with conflict on the fly between them if you have to. Because like I said, you have the 2 tribes that are kind of becoming more civilized, the ones who are getting better at organized warfare, and the ones that are practicing animal husbandry and raising cattle. And that could put them at friction with, say, the hunters who have the wolves, or even the one who has the rock, which is we kind of went back and forth on whether or not to include the rock, but it was just too cool of an idea to pass up. And it's sort of like that old Popeye, the old Sinbad the Sailor feature short. If you
Jog my memory.
With he had Popeye and Bluto as Sinbad the Sailor, and Sinbad has the pet rock on the isle that he has Popeye fight, and Popeye ends up like punching it, and it turns into a giant fried turkey.
That's a great idea. You know what? That reminds me of someone I used to know was a game designer, and I asked him for some advice on designing some cards for a game we were playing. And he said, just think of the biggest, coolest thing you can think of and do that. Like, don't worry about making it feel right, or sorry, not making it feel strong enough or weak enough or whatever. And don't worry that it's going to be too strong. And players want to have fun. Give them something awesome. Like, give the cavemen the rock. Give them dinosaurs. Give them 9th level spells. Just let them have at it. Anyway.
Yeah, and the whole idea was to just have the factions be a toolbox. You know, I know sometimes we dunk on the whole, oh, the module is a toolbox thing now. That's dumb. But in this case, one of the things I tried to emphasize in my own essay was that, look, you understand the mimetic concept of a Roman legion, you understand the mimetic concept of pirates, you understand the mimetic concept of the Inquisition, you understand the mimetic concept of a bunch of cavemen. You don't necessarily need what we've written down. You just take those ideas, throw some troops at them, and run with it. People will figure it out.
Working off of those core, you said mimetic idea, but you could also call them core archetypes of history and fiction and human endeavor, frankly.
Yeah, and you know that was also one of the reasons why I kind of broke things down into the major factions and minor factions. That was one of the things that I brought in as the editor, because some of the factions, their play would be a lot more obvious to someone who was new to the concept. They were the factions that were a bit more straightforward to play. They wouldn't necessarily require an elite level gamer to figure out how to make it work and make it fun the way that some of the factions would.
Let me see. I apologize. I should have got the link for that ready already. Drive-through RPG browser. I'm going to try to put that up on screen for anybody watching on YouTube. Cool. Google is useless. Web search is useless. Did you know the internet was dead?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're out of time, and we're going to start wrapping it up here in a minute. Daddy Warpig, last.
Yeah, I got to get to bed.
Yeah, we've been doing Monday night for a few, 6 months now? And it's changed a lot of things. But anyway, Daddy Warpig, last opportunity for questions.
I feel like you're asking me if I keep track of the passage of time, and I'm just gonna have to decline that privilege.
Time has had no meaning since COVID, so nobody blames you.
No. COVID was late to the party on that one. I've been keeping track of time for too long for me to remember, obviously.
Womp womp.
No, I don't have any questions. I've backed the Dream Lords, and I'm looking forward to getting it. I've been panicking for the last few minutes because just the other day I turned my head and saw my copy of Browser, and now I turned my head to where it was sitting and it's not there. And wait a minute, I think I know where it is.
You can always print another one.
No, I paid for I bought it off Amazon, man. Wanted a real print copy. So now I have no idea where it went. But while I was looking for it, I found my copy of Wild Star 7. It was still in its mailer because I have so many things to read that I don't have time to read any of the things that I'm not absolutely compelled to read. But what I meant to say was that I have backed a lot of, and maybe all of the Kickstarters you've done, and every single time without fail, they've always come out on time. I can't remember a single one that's ever been late. And they've always gotten to me. And so I want to make that point for the audience. Alex has a solid gold track record going back almost a decade. And it speaks for itself. It's absolutely a Kickstarter you can believe in.
Yeah, we actually put in an order for a fairly large stack of the hardcovers today because we got an exceptionally good coupon from our printer. And I'm like, I can't wait and not take advantage of this. So hopefully I can float myself the money before the funds clear for the $1,400 worth of hardcover copies that I just placed the order for.
So definitely I've backed, and I'm looking forward to getting it. And that's all I have to say.
All right, Alex, last words for you. And I got the link to the Kickstarter up there on the banner and in the show notes. Any last words for you?
Just thank you for having me on. Thanks for the plugs. Be sure to back Dreamlords. Be sure to download Browser. Pick up the fall issue if you haven't already. And we are taking advertisements for the winter issue for the next couple of weeks. If you reach out to Michael Gallagher, who is Missing Byline / Based Papist on Twitter, he is doing free graphic design for people who buy advertisements for us in the magazine.
It's a heck of a deal. Well, it was great to have you on. For my part, I really appreciate talking to you. It's always good to talk to you. We hope to have you on again in the near future. And I hope everybody who was in chat really enjoyed it. Shout outs to Simon and Brad, who have been active. They love CIRSOVA. They love Browser. And I hope everybody listening later goes and checks out, even if the Kickstarter's passed, go check out what CIRSOVA is doing with the Dreamlords and all the other stuff, great stuff that he publishes. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm done for the week.
Thank you and good night.
And while I've been talking, I've been looking for my PDF copy of Browser. So at least
it's on your computer. Was that helpful?
It's on my iCloud drive. I've been pulling it up on my iPad.
Damn.
Which required finding it on my iCloud drive and then downloading it and then manipulating things to open it in my books program and stuff like that. While I was talking, I'm doing this, mind you. So, yeah. All right, folks, we want to thank everyone who listened live. We want to thank everyone who will listen later. This has been Geek Gab for Monday, October 28th, 2024. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. We want to say click like if you like the show. Go ahead and subscribe. Click the bell icon to get an announcement as to when we are going live. We are here. youtube.com/geekgab. Once again, that's youtube.com/geekgab. Just about every week, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And you can also catch us on the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, and on SoundCloud.com. Listen to us on the device of your choice. Download us to the computer or listen to us on the web. We are signing out for today, folks. But don't you worry. Don't you fret. We will be back.